First, a small correction. I'm not the founder of CPF. A small group of devoted parents were the founders. But I can say that after several decades, the organization has enriched the lives of hundreds of thousands of children and better defined and anchored the Canadian identity. Not even a century ago, you could count the number of fluently bilingual Anglo-Canadians on a few fingers. Now you find them everywhere in Canada, every region, every profession, even in politics. I would almost say especially in politics. You cannot be a politician of any party unless you can participate in the national debate in both languages. Well, it means simply that more Canadians can communicate with more Canadians in one language or the other. Not at all. Parliament never intended to make every Canadian bilingual. Unlike the opinion of many people, the Official Languages Act never purported to teach French or English as official languages. They left that to the provinces. All you can say is that the Official Languages Act remains the anchor, symbol, and inspiration for a bilingual Canada. Some window dressing. Half a century after the Official Languages Act was passed, there was a citizens' forum on Canada's future, and massively Canadians insisted that official bilingualism is absolutely a fundamental characteristic of Canadian identity. I guess I have to plead guilty, but I assure you I didn't cheat on the results. Yes, education being an untouchable power of the provinces. I wasn't trying to dabble. I was trying to lob grenades into a bad situation. I wanted as many children as possible in Canada to have a chance to learn the other official language. For example, I remember that at the beginning of my mandate as the Federal Official Languages Commissioner, I denounced as a national catastrophe the teaching of French as a second language. That was a very useful grenade. It got everybody's attention and got the beginning of some serious action. Grenades, I could say that our office tried to produce materials that were much better than those available to the children. And these were posters and music and also a wonderful kit called the O Canada kit, which I can tell you about because it involves our going to the Council of Ministers of Education and asking them to cooperate with us, which was unheard of, absolutely stupefying. No federal official had ever set foot in a meeting of the Interprovincial Ministers of Education. But I went. Among the other actions that got attention were our efforts to produce materials and music, posters, and other classroom materials that would ease the children into learning the second language. And one of the most spectacular successes in this regard was the famous O Canada kit, which ended up being reprinted in 2.5 million copies. With illegality, never, but with extra legality, that is, doing things outside the act, this was all the time. I suppose you can say that. On the other hand, languages are made up of words, aren't they? And it seems to me we're talking about languages. Well, I used to do a fair amount of thinking in the morning as I came in while listening to Elton John's Honky Cat. And then I brought from my University of Toronto class 10 brilliant students who had been studying contemporary French Canada. And one of these, a very clever and versatile student called Gabrielle Kirschbaum, I quickly appointed our education specialist. That Gabrielle and I were able to discuss these matters of education in a very creative and mutually sympathetic way. We could almost finish each other's sentences. We were on the same wavelength all the time, and we had a lot of laughter. It was pretty wild to go to Montreal to a recording studio to audition actresses for the job of a bilingual parrot. As far as I know, the official languages, I've never mentioned parrots at all. And yet in our O Canada kit, we had a fictitious parrot called Alphonse, who was very funny and very wicked. We also had a clever and thoughtful turtle called Genevieve, and we had a crazy streaking dinosaur. Well, nobody streaks today because everything is laid out on the air without having to take your clothes off. Anyway, that was quite funny in those days. First of all, it was meant to motivate children to learn the second language, to show them that it can and should be fun. So we invented a popmobile that worked only on Coke and Pepsi and stuff like that. And they crossed Canada. There were 2 English-speaking kids and 2 French-speaking kids, and there was an ethnic background in each case. And they had adventures that were basically dictated by the provinces themselves. When I went to the interprovincial ministers of education, I said, here's the deal. We will put up the money and we will do all the first drafts of this kit. If you will tell us what would be, say, 3 or 4 major tourist attractions of your province, or something your province is known for. So we left the provinces totally in control of content, which respected their power, yet we had a bit of a lever in controlling the money. And we were very careful the way we drafted the wording of the conversations that went on. That was a lot of fun. And it took endless discussions between Gabrielle and me and a few others. We tried them out on other people too, but the basic job was between the 2 of us. There was, if I recall correctly, a 48-page comic book, all in color, of course, and showing the kids in the popmobile flying over Canada. Then there was a record, I think with 45 RPM in those days, in which there were a couple of French songs, commissioned French songs, and 2 English ones, they were bilingual songs actually. I'm not going to sing it because I have a lousy voice, but they were very funny, and they're still crystal clear today. Those old 45s still work today. And on top of that, there was a badge with I think it had a parrot on it. In 50 countries of the world, there are 500,000 people speaking English, and then in 40 countries of the world, there's another 150,000 speaking French. Canada has the best of both worlds. The other poster was of two little kindergarten kids with a very shy boy dancing with a 5-year-old girl who was blushing, and it says, "Je vous aime beaucoup. I hope you like me too." This was a big hit as well. So the purpose of the game and the travel of the Popmobile across Canada was to show all of Canada to all the children in Canada, if possible. Many of them had never been outside of their hometown, never mind their province. This showed them the whole country and showed them that whichever language they spoke. And so this game, I think this game was the way of engaging the children in collective activities and showing them that learning a second language can be and should be fun. This has zero to do with federal authority. We were acting, as I said, outside our jurisdiction. Nobody stopped us. In fact, they wouldn't have dared, because these kids were becoming very famous and accepted. And to make sure, I sent copies to every single member of Parliament, every senator, the entire press gallery, and of course the Prime Minister. And so, and therefore I think you can say that even today Justin Trudeau has probably saw these things himself. I've never had a chance to ask him that, but he would be the right age for that kind of thing. I might also mention that during the time we were producing the kit, I went with broadcaster Michael Enright, who worked for us for I think 3 months. But for 3 months he really gave us our money's worth, because we ended up convincing Secretary of State Hugh Faulkner to fund the interprovincial second language student program and the second language bursary program. It's the money that you give to kids to study a second language, and then the interprovincial monitors were ones where they would put a native-speaking child into a classroom as an auxiliary to the regular teacher. Now this took a bit of negotiation with teachers' unions, but they basically went for it in the end. Getting to the point, we had all these materials and we had lots of motivation, and we had negotiated some new contracts for helping kids move around the country. But we had not yet had a chance to talk to the parents. So we looked at the problems that were coming up in all the cities, all the big cities of Canada, and sometimes small towns. And so I decided to take a trip with Gabrielle to visit these communities that were having problems with the difficult school boards, lack of funding, bad teachers, and so on. And by the time we got to Calgary, the idea was germinating that, hey, maybe we should pull all this together and foment the creation of a Canadian Parents for French, for example. We didn't call it that, but that was the idea. That we would try to pull these people together in a conference in Ottawa and bring in the best experts we could find in all categories: teaching, materials, summer camps, exchanges, everything that we could. So I made the noise on the outside, and Gabrielle did the hard work of negotiating with these people and of hiring the people as volunteers. They all came forward. School board people from Ottawa who came in and told about the good things they were doing and how they could be achieved. So that conference that just grew out naturally from the trip across Canada and the travels all during my 7-year mandate. I guess you could say led straight to my office and roughly a 10-day meeting of parents who decided on their own initiative to found Canadian Parents for French. That's why I said you're only listening to a midwife now. Those people decided that on their own initiative, since I locked them up in a room until they came to that conclusion. They came to the conclusion they should form a national organization and a national lobby, and that's why they created Canadian Parents for French, funded, I might say, very generously by Norman and Pat Webster. They wrote a check for $5,000, which was, I guess, was the price of bail to get these people out of the room, because they had invented the organization, and now they had a budget to go on, and that's as far as I could see how it all began.